Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching my top books of 2023 video. Hopefully this doesn't require too much explanation. I'm going to go through all the books that I really liked that I read in the past year. I am not including books that were rereads, so sorry David Bad, you do not count on this list, though I did love you very much. I think most of these are 2023 releases just because of the way my reading was this year. There will be a reading reflections video at some point, but right now let's focus up. What did I love reading? What do I recommend that everyone else read? I've split this year's list into two sections. I have books that are standalones or first books in a series, and I have books that are part of a series, maybe the second or third book, just because I think there is a big difference in me recommending you read book 3 of a trilogy versus, hey, maybe pick up this standalone novella, you know? So in the interest of everyone who doesn't want to stick around for too long, let's do standalones first. I will also say I'm not going to spend oodles of time going into detail on all of these. A lot of them do have review videos up. A lot of them I've talked about in weekly reading videos. This video would be centuries long because I've not whittled down this list whatsoever. I read The Past is Red by Catherine M. Valente. This is a book that draws on the climate crisis, but in a very hopeful, kind of solar punk way. It's a great novella. It won some awards in previous years, and it's just great. It's just lovely. We follow the story of Tetley, a girl who grows up on a floating garbage island, but has a very positive attitude towards it, and we kind of see her through different periods of time, and we see how the world has changed and attitudes towards things. It's a really great story, highly recommend. It's just a novella, you can read it very quickly, go, read it now. The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. This is a fantastic horror novel. It's got everything you could ever want. It's got a haunted hacienda. It's got that kind of Rebecca-esque past wife, we don't talk about it kind of attitude. It's so wonderfully written. I know loads of people have already recommended this, but I'll add my voice to the mix. It's fantastic. You should read it, especially if you like scary books. If you're not for horror whatsoever, maybe not. One of a couple of T. Kingfisher books on this list, A House with Good Bones. This is a wonderful, another haunted house story. That's really been the theme of my reading, especially for the latter half of this year. We have a woman going back to her home in, I think it's North Carolina. Yes, North Carolina. And she goes back to her ancestral home and finds things are a little bit odd. It's a really great story. Again, highly recommend. Love T. Kingfisher's writing. This is leaning more into her modern stuff rather than her fairy tale stuff, but I like both, so I recommend both. Another novella that I very much enjoyed was C.L. Polk's Even Though I Knew the End, if you're looking for a sapphic fantasy novella historical kind of book. This features a warlock in, I think it's the 30s, but it's been long enough since I've read it that I can't actually remember, but it's a really great story. It's a wonderful little novella. It's why it was nominated for awards. I can't tell you too much about it because spoiling novellas, and also my brain is like a sieve, but I remember really enjoying it and not enough people talk about it. Back to T. Kingfisher again. I didn't curate this list in any kind of sensible way. Thornhedge is a novella about a young creature called Toadling, who's sort of a changeling child who is guarding effectively a Sleeping Beauty situation and encounters a lovely knight, and we start to see a bit about how Toadling got to where they are and why they are guarding and why it's important that they don't want anyone to wake up the Sleeping Beauty. It's very good. I recommend. Like it a lot. A lot of these are novellas in the standalone list. I think so much of the bigger stuff I was reading was series. Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee is a fantastic novella about a woman who, when her family is killed by a manticore when she's much younger, makes it her life's mission to join the Rookers, who basically are like falconers, but for rooks, so giant birds, which kill manticore. And it's not exactly a tamed animal, but it is a relationship that develops. It's a really beautiful story about wildlife and subjugation of wildlife and the morals of that, and there's a lot packed into a very small story. But it's fantastic. Fonda Lee knocks it out of the park. I love the Greenbone Saga, as you well know. I think this is the first year that I've not read it since it started coming out, but I wasn't sure if Fonda Lee could pull off this novella format. Absolutely can. It's great. Really excited for whatever comes next. The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi was a big book this year. It's one of those ones I felt like I needed to include it on this list because I definitely did enjoy it. However, throwing out the caveat, I really want to do a reread of it. I'm hoping I can get a copy after Christmas and reread it and have a better time. I just wasn't in quite the right headspace. But I did think it was a good book, and I felt like it would be weird if it wasn't on this list, so it's there. It is good. I did enjoy it. I really like S.A. Chakraborty's work. I need to do a reread of this particular one, but it's still very good. And lastly, for this section, The Last Tale of the Flower Bride is another great, slightly scary story. It's a really interesting sort of psychological book in how it deals with the scarier portions of the story. It's a really fantastic I don't want to spoil anything. A story about friendship and uncovering the past and that wonderful feeling of questioning whether or not things are magical, which I really enjoy. I know some people don't like it, but oh, it was a good time. I would read that book again if I still had a copy. It was a library loan. For those who are interested in picking up longer sets of books or maybe knowing if sequels were any good, we're on to the other half of the list. Labyrinth's Heart by M.A. Carrick was the conclusion to the Rook and Rose trilogy. I adored this. I thought it was so fantastic. Such a great end to a trilogy. Talking about it makes me want to do a reread. I love this series so much. City fantasy, con women, found family. Oh, so excellent. Fantastic. Loved it. Yes, good. A Power Unbound by Freya Marske was the conclusion to the Last Binding trilogy. That's another fantastic book, much more spicy, romance focused, but such a great story and a really great piece of a 3-part puzzle. When I read books 1 and 2, I thought they would feel a bit disparate, but book 3 really ties it all together. A great ending to a trilogy. Kind of historical, alternate history, magical romance. Bit of a wild card, not a new release. Grave Importance by Vivian Shaw is the 3rd book in the Greta Helsing series. I read these right at the start of the year, so my brain does not hold much of them in it. I don't remember everything, but I do remember really loving this series as a whole, and I think the last book, where we get to see mummies much more, a really fun time. Some great world building in that, where we have a doctor to the undead. Just a fun time. The Faithless by C.L. Clarke is the 2nd book in the Magic of the Lost series. I can remember the names of things. And again, just another great 2nd book in a series. We had a number of them this year. I think it just helps cement the characters a bit more. I am doing a reread of it at the moment, so I'll probably have more to say when that's done. There will be a video coming out soon, but that is another one of the books that I really loved this year. I've got Brother Song by TJ Klune on here, and that's a difficult one because it's technically the new release of it is not out yet, but I read an older version of it because I had to know what happened at the end of the series, and this is kind of standing in place for the whole of the end of the Green Creek series, so including Heartsong in there as well, but because that's not out till next year, it felt weird to include. But overall, I really like this. If you want angsty werewolf romance, TJ Klune has you covered. They're great books if you like that kind of thing. Another novella, Mammoths at the Gate by Niveau. This is the 4th book in the Singing Hills cycle, which is a series kind of exploring story and history and the relationship between the two and narrative and what we hold on to from stories and what we get rid of. Mammoths at the Gate was a really emotional read for me. It's the first time we really get to see the home of the main character, and just in terms of fleshing out a series that had been feeling a little bit disparate, the perfect novella. So good. City of Miracles by Robert Jackson Bennett is another older book that made it onto this list. It's again sort of standing in for reading that whole series this year. I really enjoyed it. If you want a kind of off-the-wall, interesting fantasy series that deals with divinity in a very cool way, I would definitely recommend. I think City of Miracles really got me because of the character journey you go on across all 3 books, and by the end I was just like, yes, solid series, let's get it on the list. And lastly, The Fragile Threads of Power by V.E. Schwab is the 1st book in a new arc of the series, so it sort of spans both lists. I've got a full review video up for this one. I really like it. I know that there are people who don't. There are people who don't love this series. I personally really do, and it was just exactly what I wanted it to be. And really, that's what I ask of the books that I get excited about, the books that I plan my year around reading. If they are what I hope they are, then usually they work out pretty well. That is a incredibly quick whiz through all of my favourite books of this year. I was going to include a list of books that I didn't like or books that I DNF'd, but to be honest, I DNF'd one thing this year, and it wasn't because I thought the book was bad, it just wasn't the writing style that I enjoyed. That is an incredibly fast whiz through all of my top books of this year. Obviously, I've read an awful lot of books that I've enjoyed, and as I said at the beginning, so many things I've read this year have been rereads. I don't actually have the stats on that yet. I haven't done my stats video, but I'm pretty sure the proportion of reread to new reads has been a little bit more skewed than it has been in previous years. But I've had very few books where I've just really disliked reading them this year, and I will take that as a win. Every year I get better at knowing what I will or won't enjoy, and I think also my tastes get a little bit wider, which is really exciting. Please do not ask me to pick a actual favourite out of any of the books on this list. I don't think I could whittle it down any further than I have already, but I would love to know what your top reads of 2023 have been. Are they new releases? Are they old favourites? Are they a weird backlist title that you managed to read by coincidence and it turned out to be the absolute best thing for you ever? let me know down in the comments below. While you're down there commenting, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can also come hang out on Discord where we have chill chats about books. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all the ghosts who haunt me over on Patreon. They support the channel and in return get early access to videos, bonus content, live streams and more. If you'd like to join their number, that's linked below as well. Thank you so much to you for watching. That's all from me and I will see you in the next one.
There's gonna be some bloopers now.
I've done this a number of years. I don't think this should require too much search. I think even though I have physical copies of some of these, I'm just going to commit to putting the covers up. Sorry, editing Judith, but otherwise I'm going to make such a mess in here, it's not worth doing. And yeah, that was... Ooh, I've got to get the door. Excuse me. Now I have to catch my breath from leaping up and down the stairs. Ooh.